Good morning, team. Thank you so much for jumping on the call this morning. I really appreciate it. We are on episode number 183, and this will be 5 episodes into Take Flight version 4.0, and the second of which where we're talking about the cockpit. And today's call is about flight preparation. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk to you about my professional purpose, or remind you what my professional purpose is, and that is to help you, the broker and entrepreneur, optimize your productivity and help you become the best version of yourself. Why? Because happy brokers sell more real estate. And I do that by helping you handle the challenges and opportunities that you face every single day. And if you can effectively manage certain situations that arise on a daily basis in your business, you'll be more productive and live a life that is the best version of you. And like I said, we are on our 183rd episode of my Monday morning pep talk that I've actually recorded. And this is the 5th week bringing you into Take Flight version 4.0. And today I want to compare the actual physics behind air flight and show you how it compares to building a life and a business that is in flow, or we call flow 30,000 feet, right? There are elements of your life and business that must be considered and required attention and preparation before you can get truly serious about building your dream life and business. Let's look at what it takes to get an actual aircraft to 30,000 feet. The physics of flight requires that lift, drag, weight, and thrust happen at the correct time and in the proper amounts. For an airplane to go up in the air, the lift has to be stronger than the force of gravity. Now, lift happens at the wings as air passes over them. Now, airfoils in the wing make the air move over the top of the wings faster than it moves across the bottom of the wings. The faster the air decreases the air pressure on top of the wings and the air pressure gets higher on the bottom of the wings. That's the basis of air flight principle, right? So it has everything to do with how the air flows on the top of the wings and under the wings, and that's what gives it the lift. The weight of the airplane determines how much lift and thrust it takes to get off the ground. Okay, so it's the weight that determines the amount of lift that's needed. The thrust comes from a plane's engines and has to be a stronger force than the drag. So drag happens as the airplane naturally resists moving through the air, and the shape of the airplane reduces the drag, which helps it fly faster. Now, that was a lot, right? But it was just a reminder that there's physics involved to get a plane off the ground. And next time you're on a flight, just realize that it's the engines creating the thrust, right? It's the weight of the airplane that determines how much thrust and lift is needed. Okay. So in realizing all that and comparing it to our life and business, there's one area that I want you to really focus on today. Okay. And that is the weight of the airplane determines how much lift and thrust it takes to get the plane off of the ground. So as we move through Take Flight version 4.0, I would compare the weight of the aircraft to negative and stagnant energy, okay, that we have in our mind and in our environment. I think you'd all agree that many of us have negative stagnant energy that's in our mind and in our environment. And the less stagnant negative energy you have in your mind and environment, the easier it is to get that lift, to gain that altitude and create speed in our business. Your engines, as we relate it to Take Flight, is lead generation and referral strategies. And those are going to be areas that we're going to talk later on as we move through these Monday morning pep talks. Okay. It's your engines will have to provide less power if you have less weight. Okay. Your engines will have to provide less power to gain that altitude if you have less negative stagnant energy that you're carrying. Okay. So when you think about the traditional real estate coaching or sales training that's available to you, your expectations might be that you would immediately be introduced to a set of new processes, lead generation strategies, time management ideas, et cetera. And I get that. And it's understood because most brokers want to jump straight to action. But when I talk in Take Flight, I like to start from the inside, right? I like to start from the inside of your mind and your environment. One of the best compliments I ever got, somebody said to me, Jim, you coach from the inside out. And that honestly was maybe one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten, because I think it is so important that we focus on these areas, because if we do, we just have less weight that we got to carry and effort that we have to put in to get our plane off the ground. Again, all these other topics, lead generation strategies, time management strategies, systems, processes, habits, routines, all of that. Trust me, we're going to get into all of that. Um, but first, we want to weed your garden. All right, we want to weed your garden. Let me ask you this question: would you fully irrigate or plant seeds to a garden before making sure the weeds are gone? Would you plant seeds in a garden that hasn't been tilled? Do my farmer buddies out in central Nebraska, do they plant their corn in land that is not fully prepared for planting? The answer is no. But many of us try to go right to action, planting seeds in a garden that is full of weeds. That's dry, that's not ready to be planted and fertilized and ready for growth. Unfortunately, this process that we're talking about right now is not taught consistently. One loves to get sold on those shiny objects that are just noise, right? And in many cases, take our time, take our focus, take our energy with limited results. Getting to 30,000 feet takes self-review. It takes time, and it takes consistent effort. So you might be asking, Jim, how? How do I do that? What are the areas that I need to focus on? And here are the areas that I have identified, that I have seen, really make a difference when they're addressed. These are areas that require self-review to eliminate that negative stagnant energy. All right. Mindset is number one. I talked about it last week. If, we went into great detail on the last episode. It all starts and stops with your mind. I've seen brokers see huge success by deleting old paradigms around what it means to be successful, normally created by a lifetime of programming. I've seen some brokers want to hide their success from family members because of their financial position is so much better than how they grew up, almost embarrassed by their success. I've seen brokers literally work themselves into the ground to live up to expectations placed on them by others, and in many cases, their family members and friends. If you've not listened to last week's call, episode 182, it is a must listen. I go into great detail about definitions as it relates to energy and frequency and your mind and how it works. Get into nature. You have to understand the mind, because it all starts and stops between the ears. So do not just skip over that call. Many of you need to spend a lot of time on that area. I do every single day. I catch myself. It's the hardest part of what I got to focus on, right? Because we live in a world right now that's pretty difficult to navigate at times if you're not keeping your mind right. Number two, your environment, team, your physical environment has to be built for success. Okay. This is your home, your office. Show me your closets, your desk, your refrigerator, your spice rack, and I can tell you everything I need to know about how organized and probably how stressed you are. Most of our negative, stagnant energy lives in our physical environment. If this is you, it's time to finally take on this project and get it done. Your environment must be calm and serene to live in flow, to fly at 30,000 feet. You need to be very aware of your social media feeds, the news you listen to. You need to unsubscribe and unfollow consistently to make sure that you are deleting negative, stagnant energy, which wastes time, which is number three. time. We waste so much time on worthless, unproductive activities. Take flight and get to 30,000 feet, you'll need to really live with intention. Protect your time. And as we get further down into Take Flight, we're going to talk about boundaries. We're going to talk about decision making. We're going to talk about all those things. But for now, we just must realize and recognize that we have to be very careful with our time, because when it's gone, it's gone. Number 4, your finances. Get automated, delete debt, invest regularly. You can make all the money in the world, but if it is managed poorly and bad decisions are made, you'll never fully get off the ground. Number 5, relationships. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You've heard this, true. I'm not saying that you have to get rid of all the relationships that don't serve you, but just make sure that those relationships are kept at bay, that they're not in your top 5. You know, there's family members that we have, some of us, that, you can't you can't get rid of them as a family member, but you can be very, very careful with the energy that you take on from some of these family members and friends. I don't need to go into that in very great detail. You know what I'm talking about. In some cases, you may have to, though, move on from some relationships that aren't going to help you take flight. What I would do, I think one of the most powerful things that I've seen done over the last couple of years is I've seen these accountability groups start to small, 3 or 4 people where like-minded individuals get together and support each other. I think it's really, really important. It's a great way to discuss your wins and losses, support each other, and become good professional friends and personal friends too. Really highly recommend that you look at something like that if you've not already done it. Number 6, health and wellness. Many of us battle in this area. The best results sometimes come from things that we don't do, that we eliminate, other than things that we add, right? Some of the best results that we can get in the area of health and wellness are the things that we eliminate from our day, from our diet. 7, business strategies. A lot more to come on this as we move through Take Flight, but my goal for you is to do less better. Do less better, and you'll get better results. Get rid of what doesn't work and get really good and consistent what does work for you. Every business is a little bit different, but we'll discover ways together on how to best identify where your efforts should be pointed. Mindset, environment, time, finances, relationship, health and wellness, business strategies, all areas that you can clean up, you can delete, you can eliminate. Did Take Flight version 4.0 just get really completely real for you? Hope so. My job is not always to tell you what you want to hear. As you know, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a feng shui organizer, a financial planner, an attorney, or a fitness instructor. I can tell you what you need to hear, but you will need to seek assistance from a team of professionals that can hold you accountable. From what I can tell you that if What I can tell you though is that if you tackle the 7 areas I listed above, you will not recognize yourself in a year. I've seen people take action in these areas and literally change their lives and businesses. Not by adding, by doing less. There's so much opportunity for growth if you tackle these areas with consistent effort. Most of you on this call right now are really, really good brokers, really good entrepreneurs. You're very skilled. But some of you have weeds that need to be pulled before you can focus on planting more. If you complement the skills you already have with consistent, intentional effort to delete the negative, stagnant energy from your mind and environment, like I said, you will not recognize your life and business a year from now. One of my favorite guiding principles, heard it from Matthew McConaughey first. I want to give him credit for it. Goes like this: high performance starts with elimination. You'll hear me say the word guiding principle. They're like guardrails, right? High performance starts with elimination. Love that. It makes so much sense. If this call resonated with you, I highly recommend the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown as this, like I said, as this week's recommendation. And if you've already read it, I'm sure that it had an impact on you. It did on me. Tomorrow on my email, I will include a video that does a full book review on it. It's about 12 minutes, takes you through the entire book and, in kind of detail. It's a terrific one. And I'm excited to put that back out there for you. If you've read it in the past, I highly recommend that you put it back in the queue again. It's one of those that you really need to reread, kind of like Atomic Habits and others that I'm gonna talk about in this Take Flight. I'm probably not gonna hit my reading list if I'm not reading it more than once, right? What do I mean by that? I read it once and I go back and study it over and over again. But essentialism is definitely in that group of books. Your takeaway from this call should be focus on less. Sometimes less is more. Delete what is not working. Delete what is not working. Pull those weeds. In preparation for flight, you need to fly light. It'll take way less effort to get to 30,000 feet if you have less baggage. Team, thanks for jumping on today. I really appreciate it. See you next week.